I was just watching some YouTube about the universe and galaxies and star clusters and things like that. For some reason, I was interested in that. And something occurs to me that I know will be quite divisive. But I just want to say that I'm not attempting to be divisive or confrontational. I'm just saying what I think to be true right now. And this is a new thought, and I realise I could be wrong. And I'm happy to accept criticism. I just want to learn and communicate. Well, what I'm thinking is that basically, when you look at the achievements of mankind through the ages and how we got to where we are, the technology that we have, the knowledge we have of the universe, the engineering, the food production, so many elements about how we live our lives now. Our televisions, our computers, our videos, our clothing, our food production. The list goes on of the things we have in our lives that we just take for granted. Electricity, gas. We just live our lives with these things being in our environment, and we depend on these things and we don't think about it very much. But I'm thinking about it now. I'm thinking about how we have these things and why we have these things. I've been particularly interested in my life on the differences between men and women. I made a documentary on YouTube using the name Man Woman Myth, analysing in some depth differences between men and women, looking at how our functional differences, how we live our lives in the world, and how we are viewed in the world. And one of the things I identified was that men were mistreated in a sense. That's called misandry, the hatred of men. I identified several things in society which indicated the view of men was wrong, basically, and the treatment of men was bad. I'm thinking now about, I suppose, a certain reality that needs to be accepted, and that should be accepted, and shouldn't be a kind of a there isn't a problem in this reality. For example, men have beards, men grow beards, and that's simply the way it is. It's not in any way disparaging towards women to say that men have beards and women don't, so men are somehow better than women. It would obviously be ridiculous to suggest such a thing. But what I'm thinking is that men have an intelligence that women simply do not. It's simply the way it is. And I don't see any way that it can be argued with, but I'm happy to hear arguments about it. If we look at the scientific advancements, the intellectual advancements, if we look at who has written great works, who has invented the things that we depend on in our lives, if we look at why we have houses and roads, and why we have computers and televisions, why we have food in our bellies, if you look at the work that's done, the inventions that we have, the products we depend on, the techniques we've developed, almost everything about our knowledge can be tied to the work of great men. It's simply the way it is, and I'm just recognizing what is a fundamental fact. As I said, men grow beards and women do not. It's simply the way it is. I think men are more capable intellectually than women, and that's simply the way it is, in the same way. The things we have in our lives that we depend on are the result of the efforts and the productivity and the genius of men in the main. I think that should be recognized and celebrated, and it is not in any way a criticism of women. It's simply pointing out a reality and recognizing something that it seems we choose not to recognize because it's seen as some kind of attack on women, and I don't see it that way at all. I don't see how pointing out the brilliance of men is in any way a disparagement of women. It should be allowable to be positive about men without being seen to be negative about women. I think it's fair and right to be positive about the achievements of men. I see it as legitimate and justified. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. The achievements that men have made are just wondrous. I'm recording this using my computer, for example, and I'll be publishing it on YouTube. And when I think of how the data is transmitted through cabling underground and going to servers somewhere, and the electricity to power the buildings that they're in, and then the broadcasting of the video material, all of these things are the product of men, the work of men, the genius of men. The energy of men have made these things possible. And that is a positive thing to point out. It's a great thing, and we should be very grateful for it. I know that I certainly am very grateful for it.